I watched every single second of reesa teesa's 50-part story time so that you don't have to. So if you have ADHD, here's a brief summary. This woman, reesa teesa, starts dating this guy during the pandemic. It was like 2 weeks before the pandemic started. They had met online dating, and then they had just really hit it off. They started to hang out, and then the pandemic hits 2 weeks later, and she thinks that for some reason it's a good idea to let him move in with her. As he moves in with her, he starts paying the bills, so she's comfortable. She doesn't really care what he's got going on to a crazy degree. He seems nice enough. He seems enjoyable. They have fun together. Time goes by, and within a month, he starts telling her he wants to buy her a car. He shows her proof of funds. He tells her he's a VP at a condiment company. He has this good job, and, meanwhile, he's paying her rent. So she's like, oh, well, maybe he'll just buy me a car too. She starts to believe it. She starts going to test drive all these cars. It never pans out super well, but she just figures that it didn't work out. Then he starts asking to buy her a house. He starts showing her houses that are like $600,000, $700,000, and again, he shows proof of funds. He keeps showing her screenshots of his bank accounts. She believes it. They even hire a realtor. They're back and forth with the realtor, but the realtor keeps asking for proof of funds before they can actually give them a house, and the guy won't show it. That's when she kind of starts to get like red flags peaking, but at this point now, it's like 4 months into them dating, and she's pregnant, she's hormonal, and she just doesn't really give a shit that he's lying to that extent, I guess. She doesn't realize how bad the lies are. Meanwhile, this whole time, this guy is on the phone with his family members every morning, and because it's the pandemic, he tells her that his stepdaughter or his daughter is now dying or dead from COVID. He tells her that the grandma died from COVID, the uncle died from COVID. The craziest part about all of this is that these people died decades ago, but we'll get into that later. Long story short, she pretty much starts to notice more red flags, more lies come up. And it gets to the point where she's like, no, this is messed up. She loses the baby. So she's like, okay, I'm not even attached to him in that way. Fuck it. Let me, she just starts to find out way too much. And I guess all the lies start to add up. And one day she just overhears this man say to his auntie, I ain't never lied to her once. This made this woman snap. I guess it triggered her, and she just lost it. She was like, you lied about this, you lied about this, you lied about this, you lied about this, you're diabolical. Get out of my house. I want nothing more to do with you. Once she kicks him out is when she really starts to uncover the truth. She realizes that this man had a twin brother that she didn't know about, that literally lived the life that this guy was portraying to live. He was actually a VP at a company. He actually drove a luxury car. He actually lived in a really nice home, all the shit. She realizes that his grandma had actually died in like 2008 or some shit. He had even taken her to a cemetery site where he said, this is where my dead relatives are. It was not at all where they were actually buried. It was a random grave site. And apparently he just worked there in the past and knew that grave site would have a corresponding last name. Anyway, after she kicks him out, she finds out that, his family members had never died. He had numerous ex-wives from the past that were like, no, this guy is diabolical. He lies about everything. All the lies started to come out. He was homeless. He didn't have a proper job, all the shit. So she starts to get super freaked out, and she just realized that this man was an awful human being. More and more lies come out, and within I think it was a month or so or something along those lines, he then starts calling her, realizing because they're married, he can come back into the home because it's legally their marital home. But then she finds out he had a criminal record. He had a criminal record for impersonating a police officer, and she had no fucking clue. And she was married to this man. So, long story short, she ends up just calling the police, saying there's a warrant out for his arrest. When he shows up to the house, she calls the cops, doesn't hear from him again, allegedly. So that's the story. There's the brief synopsis for you. The reason that I watched the whole thing is because I had a very similar situation happen to me. Not to that extent, but I definitely have my own story time of who the fuck was I living with, because I didn't realize my boyfriend was homeless until the day he moved in with me, when he looked at me and told me he didn't have a dollar to his name. If you want that story time, let me know. But for those of you who have ADHD, there's your summary.